Welcome to Try Your Own Adventure with Benjamin Starr. With holiday parks and resorts across New South Wales and Queensland, find your dream destination with Ingenia Holidays.
And thank you for joining us. Well, today we've ended up at a fabulous place called the Bargara Brewing Company. And it was established in 2014, believe it or not. And brewing is big up here in the far north Queensland area of Bundaberg. And I must say, we've got a man who is very, very passionate about what he does. Jack Milbank joins me. Jack, thanks very much for having us here. You're the founder and CEO of Bargara Brewing Company. And I'd like to know something about this facility. Tell me a little bit about it.
I think what we're feeding is people's desire for experimentation, and they were just got very bored with a pale lager. That, you know, when the whole beer industry consolidated through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and everybody just got fed one style of beer, time had to come when people started demanding something a little more interesting, and so we did that just by literally producing pale ales. And then from pale ales then came the IPAs, then the XPAs, then branching out to more interesting beers like we've got Irish Reds, we then played around with our extra pale ale and used a glutenase reduction enzyme to strip all the gluten out so we could service the celiac market or gluten-free trends.
So you really have to be a scientist to understand this. I mean, I know you can go buy a home brewing kit and people probably have major explosions under their house because they don't know what they're doing. But you're talking like all this scientific stuff. Yeah. How did you learn to do all this stuff?
Well, I still don't know how to do it all. I've never done any home brewing, and I'm an agronomist, which is a plant and soil scientist. So our other business, we operate a soil testing laboratory and a microbiology lab. So I know a lot about different strains of bacteria, fungi, yeast, and then I know a lot about working with growers and different varietal characteristics of crops. So I know what different things we can use, and then that's, I suppose, the proliferation of fruit beers recently is perfect because that's what we specialise in, is servicing the horticulture industry. So it's just combining and having a bit of a knowledge of the flavour profiles, what ingredients are going to work well together, and then producing a premium quality product of a reasonable scale. So we're doing 4 or 5 pallets a week that we're able to, produce, and servicing just Queensland-wide, Dan Murphy's and BWS, and then targeted export markets. So we'll just do one mixed shipping pallet of 105 cases, but we'll just keep that regular. So instead of huge batches of blended product, we're doing single batch production run, so it always comes off fresh, gets packaged and goes straight out the door. So we're not hanging on to a lot of inventory, it's always fresh getting to the consumers.
So people would go into a pub, they normally buy what they've been served, by the industry itself, and it's probably the same recipe that they've used for the last 100 years. Was it ever inventive to begin with, or was it always just stock standard?
I think this is the fantastic thing that's happened with this resurgence of the craft brewing industry, is that we've reintroduced a lot of that diversity and creativity and innovation into the different beer styles, use of ingredients, brewing processes, techniques, yeast strains, and temperature variations, and then it's a very collaborative industry. So breweries working in partnership with other breweries, but now what we're doing more is cross-platform promotion and multimedia collaborations.
It's a different world now, isn't it? The whole social media thing changes it. It's become boutique, you can survive, whereas 10 years ago you couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. So we're working in partnership with a novelist that's released a book on Amazon, and we'll partner with one beer, put the QR code on that beer, use his book label on the beer, and the QR code will link to his Amazon page so people can drink the beer, look at the label, read the text, download it onto their Kindle and start reading while they finish their beer.
So a drink and a read scenario. I mean, that's something that big companies just don't get.
No.
I mean, you'd never actually be able to meet the person that could decide to do that.
Yep. And I suppose that's what we try and thrive on, is our agility and our ability to take quick decisions and move with market trends and be the edgy cool cats that the craft industry represents.
This series that we've been recording, it's quite interesting. We go out and we speak to all these people about their different things that their wares and they're selling. What I find really interesting is it's the small man who had the guts to start something. I mean, if you look at the size of this joint here, it's pretty big, and decides to risk it all in some ways and start their own company. To be an entrepreneur is amazing. But how did you get to this point? What made you get to that point?
Well, I joke a lot of the time that I'm an undercover refugee because we were farmers in Zimbabwe and we're kicked out of there. Yeah. And I sort of...
Drinking too much?
Yeah, bro. I look like an Aussie, so I can slip under the radar. Yeah. And, but pretty much we sort of were booted out with nothing, and so I had to start again here.
Just to give the listeners an idea, because they'll walk in and see this and they say, oh, it's fantastic. What would you have risked to start this thing up? Like, what sort of money would you have had to put down?
Probably $1.5 million.
It's a lot of money. That's a house.
It is. It's a big house. And, I suppose the, significant pressure because money doesn't come easy. So the banks, particularly with the Royal Commission, no one's just giving away money. And it's very short repayment times, unforgiving. Unless you meet your payments, they're just lethal. So...
and then from that, you start this thing up, you buy all the equipment. That's still a risk. You still haven't proved yourself yet. Then you've got to start to brew it. Then you start brewing it. Then you've got to think logistics. How do you get the stuff out? And it's the boutique market is the way it's all going.
Yeah, and it's a very crowded market. Obviously, when we started just 5 years ago, there would have been 10 breweries in Queensland. There's now 60. We're lucky in that we started reasonably early and of a scale that we could supply export as well as the bigger retailers.
So what's it like to see the all these boxes? What's it like for you to see them all go on a truck, knowing that they're on their way to Singapore and all these countries? I mean, it must give you a thrill.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, the satisfaction, particularly this year. So, for example, we just sent a load over to the North Yorkshire where my grandfather was born, and my cousin has just taken over the estate. It got one of the first liquor licenses in England in 1690, and since my cousin took over, he's renovated it into a Yorkshire ale house and got us to brew the first beer for him.
How cool is that? So that's on its way to England, is it?
It's already there. It's arrived.
Really?
And being sold, yeah.
And is there another one in production?
Well, I suppose we're just doing one batch at a time. Yeah. So we've sent some of this to Singapore as well, and we've sent our full range now. We've got a really cool stockist there with a chain of bars.
What are these ones over here? What's this market?
Yeah, so Sujata and Saloma are for our Singapore distributor. So he's got a fictional character called the Muddy Rascal, which is this little guy on the label. And basically it's his tales of this Muddy Rascal's escapades all around Singapore. And these are lovers that he's left scattered around the city. And so the range of beers will have a different girl's face on each beer style. And, and then you follow Muddy Rascal on Instagram and the stories and mischief that he gets up to.
When you look at beer in this country alone, the amount of advertising that is spent associated with sport is amazing. And people have grown up with a brand impressed on their name. They don't know whether it's good or bad. They're just buying a brand. Is it hard to get that sort of breakthrough? Or is the boutique industry not interested in that type of breakthrough?
They're not interested in that sort of breakthrough because it's a counterculture. Yeah. So, what makes me laugh the most is when TUI's and support New South Wales Blues and Forex Gold supports Queensland, both owned by the same company.
The everyday person wouldn't know.
No, they pitched against each other, and I only drink TUI's new, and I only drink Forex. You're supporting the same foreign multinational, which is the sort of irony of it, and that's...
which for them is about money. Yeah, I mean, this is about money, but is it more about the passion and the money?
Yeah, and maintaining, I've got 3 young girls, and we live in regional Australia, and, at the end of it, it's providing financial security for a family business in a beautiful regional town, and keeping that money in this economy. So we now have 15 sort of casuals, all the school kids. when they're in year 12, we'll have usually 4 or 5 of them each year working at the brew house, and we see their confidence growing as they get used to serving customers and learning about beers, and we host all the Christmas parties around town.
It's about community. A lot of people here don't want to be multi-millionaires in the world that we live in. They're happy to be the king brewer in the town, but just be still part of the town.
Exactly. And, I suppose we don't want to get a lot bigger than we currently are. We just want to keep doing what we do really well. But it takes such a long time, 6-7 years to start to be in a position where you haven't got a foot to your throat, and you're able to survive, and then...
And you're also still trying to build your own reputation.
Yeah, exactly. And manufacture consistently and distribute. And so, it's really... I'm frustrated by governments because they pay a lot of lip service and want every photo opportunity with you when you succeed, but they're the first to slap a new excise increase, a new fire levy, a new whatever onto you as soon as you're doing well.
But in terms of tourism and this town, let's be honest, we're in a beautiful part of the world. Most people this is a tourist attraction.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is where we have these fantastic bus trips of people coming up, and they try a tasting paddle. We walk them through the brewing process, and they can see it all being made, and sit down and taste all the different beers. And we take time, so often an hour or 2 on Saturday, and we just chat to them about all the different ingredients that week that we might have got in from the chili farm. And it's a family meeting spot, so lots of... we don't have any screens, so there's no gambling, no pokies, no screens. So all we rely on is people coming in, sharing a beer, having a chat and a conversation, listening to some music.
So if someone was going for a drive through the coast today, they've definitely got to come here for a drink and a beer.
A long, hard sit in contemplation about how good life is.
Thanks for having us today, Jack. And Jack Milbank is the founder and CEO of Bargara Brewing Company. Of course, he is the man behind all the wonderful brewing techniques here in the brew house. And when you come to Bundaberg, just pop on in and say hello as you drive your own adventure. Thanks to Ingenia Holidays.
Thanks for listening to Drive Your Own Adventure with Ingenia Holidays. With holiday parks and resorts across New South Wales and Queensland, Ingenia Holidays offers the ideal place for an extended break, weekend getaway or short stopover. Find your dream destination with Ingenia Holidays at www.ingeniaholidays.com.au.